I think we're live. I'm so happy that everything is working today. I had such big tech issues this week, and I think I figured it out. So let me pop up one more window here. I want to make sure I have the chat. Hold. I want to make sure I have the chat open. All right, 1 second. And hopefully you all have your tracing reference photo. Their link is in the description. We're painting Midas today. So fun. Our members picked Midas, and you guys have been picking like the dark dogs lately. And I've seen a lot on Facebook from my watercolor groups I'm in too, that dark dogs can be kind of a challenge. And I think if you have a few tricks up your sleeve, they'll become your favorite to paint. I love white dogs too, honestly, for the same reason. You get to pick the colors. Although this is definitely a brown dog, it's not a black dog. So we do have to kind of be a little bit more in tune with the actual color of the dog, but you get to pick your colors. I'm just popping up my chat right now, making sure I got everything I need in my windows. I'm so happy. I'm so happy my tech is working today. I had to reschedule my actual workshop, like a paid workshop, because I couldn't get my tech to work because I updated my software 5 minutes before I went live, which was really dumb. Thank you. Thank you for, oh, you're already in the chat. So excited that you're here. I apologize. I was leaving this reference photo and tracing on my website, but it's there now. I tested the links. They should be there. We should be good to go. I am painting on Fabriano rough 300-pound paper, a full-size sheet, and I trim them down just a little bit to 22 by 28 because here in the States, that's like a standard frame size, 22 by 28 inches. So hopefully you have a good size that you're excited to paint in. I did trace it with my number 2 pencil, and I'm never too concerned with pencil lines showing through, but I don't want them to be distracting. So I will take some time to kind of lift up a little bit of that dark pencil. Especially if this was a white dog, I'd be a little bit more careful with getting some pencil lines off, especially on the light side, maybe where you would really see it show through, because we just don't paint very much on the light side. This is going to be a really fun dog to paint, but I would say it's a more challenging reference photo because it's a little bit blurry and pretty dark. I lightened it up as much as I really could, which you'll see unfortunately wasn't actually very much. It's still very, very dark. So pop your questions in the chat, and I will keep an eye on that as we go. I'm going to start with eyes. If you painted with me before, you kind of get my process. I always like to think, okay, whiskers, do I need to mask anything? And I don't. I don't see the whiskers in this reference photo, so I looked up Chocolate Lab on an image search, and it looks like they kind of have black whiskers. So I'm going to do whiskers with our ink pen at the end and with scraping. The other thing I want to mention too is this thing. It's a tracing stylus, and I've been using it on every single painting lately, just for this little line indentation to create the line on the tongue. Really cool. Like, I would buy it just for that. But I also do like a lot of paintings. The other cool thing I kind of wanted to share before we get started, I feel like I talk a little too much and I want to get started painting, but I just get excited, and I haven't taught in a long time, so I'm kind of like want to tell everybody everything because it's been too long. But I have this cool thing where I let my dirty water settle. I pour off the water, and then there's usually pigment at the bottom after you let it settle overnight if you have dirty water. And then I pour that dirty pigment water in here, and then it further evaporates. And unfortunately, it's still kind of watery, but there's like actual paint in here. It like eventually this water evaporates, and you just have like actual watercolor paint that you can paint with. And it's just so cool because that now not only are you not sending paint down the drain, right? You're thinking about the environment a little bit. You're kind of saving a really cool color of paint. I gotta fix that little smudge. So let's just see what it looks like. I haven't actually painted with this. I've been doing this for a while, but I thought, oh, that's pretty. It's like a really pretty purpley brown black. So I'm excited to see kind of how that I incorporate using this in my practice. Pretty cool. I thought that was really fun. Little thing I've been doing. The other thing, thank you to a YouTuber who told me about this. I'm going to spray my palette to get all those colors kind of softer so that I don't have to scrub them with my brush so much. Because I really used to do that. I still kind of do. I'm not the nicest to my brushes. Let's start with these eyes finally. The other thing I did too, I'm kind of always just optimizing. When you paint as often as I do, you kind of figure things out pretty quick. And I got this liner brush. So it's still the same Princeton line, Princeton Select, because I just love it and they're really cheap. But it's a liner. It's actually called a liner. So it's nice and thin and makes really, really beautiful thin lines. So let's start with the eyes. Yay! Thank you for, oh, you guys, this is so fun to be in the chat. I'm so glad you're here. Everybody who's chatting. I'm trying to figure out, zoom in on the eyes so we can kind of see this better. And it's hard. I have one monitor and it's like I have to see my stream and my chat and my reference photo and all that stuff. I think I got it now. Perfect. So let's start. I'm going to grab neutral tint on my liner brush. And I really like this. I still use my Meeden brush. You can use any round brush that comes to a nice point. I like it because it does do a variegated line. So you can get thin and thick, which you can't really with this. I really like that. But I found it's a little bit challenging once you kind of worn out your brush a little bit, and I wear them out because I'm just not very gentle to them. But it's hard to get a really thin line. On a nice new brush, you can definitely do it. But it's a little bit harder when you're as rough on your brushes as I am. Okay. This is a little bit challenging. We're really in the dark here on this dark side eye. So I'm going to come in with water on my other size 6 round brush that I like to use for just water. And I'm going to pop in some water here. And it's very organic. It's not super precise. Zoom in for you guys to see these better. This will be pretty. All right, and we can add our dark. And I've been cheating because I'm using colors that aren't on my supply list. I just had these colors in my paint drawer and I really wanted to experiment with them again. So I have ultramarine pink, M. Graham, ultramarine pink. And I have Daniel Smith quinacridone pink. Yep, I did that right. One is very pink, and then the ultramarine pink is purple. But they're really cool colors that we could mix from our existing colors. We could mix ultramarine blue and lunar black and opera pink. But I've been having fun with incorporating these colors, especially on brown dogs. Like a deep, rich purple is so beautiful on brown animals. I'm going to pull that water and that color that we just dropped in. Use whatever purple you're excited about. And I'm going to pull that to make some beautiful grainer brush edges up into that eye. lid a little bit. Maybe put a little bit more water. And I haven't painted on rough paper in a hot minute, so this will be kind of fun too. And then I'm also going to grab our quinacridone rust if you're M. Graham, and if you're Daniel Smith, it's quinacridone burnt orange. And that is now permanent in my palette. And it is high up on my to-do list to update my supply list, because I do have a few tricks that I've been employing lately that have really helped my practice. And then these new colors too. So I'm getting a really heavy mix of this. It's taking a little while. All right, let's pop in some of that brown. And I'm hoping I'll catch some scraping on this too. So maybe I will grab my scraping tool and just put it in my field of view so I try not to forget. Helps me remember to actually try scraping. I'm going to grab that liner brush again and just put a little bit of that black in the pupil. And I found that next to the reflections themselves is money when you put your blue. So ultramarine blue and cobalt teal right next to those white paper reflections that we're saving. And it'll bridge the gap between the reflections and the black that you just put down. I left a little bit of a margin because now I can come in with my water only brush and fill in the gaps and let that ultramarine blue spread into that water. And I think I need a little bit more black. This is a really dark eye. Very challenging. Actually, I don't know if it's challenging. It's just, we probably honestly have more wiggle room. We just have to make sure it's dark enough in this beautiful shadow. I put more of that black neutral tint on the outside upper edge of the eye, and it looks pretty wonky right now. We're gonna let that dry and then add the pupil or the iris, and it'll look a lot better. But before we do, I'm gonna add a little water and let that black mingle with the color that we laid down. And I want to test scraping too. Just gotta make sure I have my chat up. Okay, cool. I don't think scraping's ready, so we're gonna give that a hot minute. Ah, yay! Sailing Moby Dick, I'm really happy you're here. Leo is not here right now, but he would be very happy to see that you're here. He had a lot of fun in the live last time. I love that he still likes doing those things with me. He just turned 10 yesterday, so he's busy riding his new electric scooter we got for his birthday. Like the coolest. We live in a neighborhood that's kind of on the nicer side, like a little out of our league. And so all the kids have e-stuff. They all have like e-bikes or e-scooters, and they're just always riding around the neighborhood. So he'll fit right in now with his new electric scooter. Okay, same thing on this eye. Coming in and doing some fine line work to give us some outlines to fill in. And then still babysitting the other eye because I do really want to get some scraping in there. Come in with a little bit of water. And then let's put some water in the eyebrow area too. see there's quite a bit more of a highlight around the light side eye that we can see versus the shadow eye. But I'd like to put in a nice highlight around the shadow eye anyway. We can lift that out if we need to. Popping in my purple. And then I'll pop in some of that brown. Okay, back. I'm recovering from a little cold, so I just didn't want to cough on camera because that would be very loud. Look at that. We're getting some beautiful scraping already. Oh, see, like you could mask that out, right? You could put opaque color on the top, but none of them would look as fresh as scraping does. Just absolutely gorgeous. And you don't need a lot, so I'm going to try to think about not doing too much scraping. That's so pretty. That is just beautiful. Let's finish this with some grainer brush before it dries. Short hair dogs. This will be kind of fun. I've been doing a lot of long hair dogs lately. But short hair dogs are really, you can let watercolor really shine in any dog, but in a little bit of a different way for this one. I'm going to pop in some of that purple again, right on the dark side of the eye here where that's in shadow. And I might grainer brush that edge a hot minute there. And it needs more purple. Where else do we need a little bit more depth? I'm going to put a little bit more on our dark side eye, kind of in more of a fur pattern way, not just laying it down. I don't want to cover up the beautiful scraping that we achieved. All right, let's get a little bit of our pupil area in place on the light side. And then I'm going to put a little bit of water down here. Midas has kind of some droopy eye going on. And I like to capture that, but I don't necessarily need to emphasize it. It's an important part of Midas, but I don't want it to like distract us from his expression. So softening that up with some water, drawing that purple in a little bit. Then let's bring that blue next to those reflections, bridging the gap between the reflections and the black we laid down. Then we'll come in with water only and let that blue come up to wherever we paint with water. That's a great first step. I want to scrape this too. The other thing I'd like to do is maybe lift a little bit while this hasn't completely dried yet. Even though it's in shadow, I think that's a good idea. A little bit of a highlight right there. And then the other thing we can do too is since we have so little information for this eye right here, we can kind of copy this eye a little bit. So we have this beautiful kind of incline shape. And I think I want to match the shape of this eye to match this one a little bit better. This one looks a little circular. So I'm going to take my liner brush and kind of put that in a way to match the light side eye. Maybe I overdid it a little bit. I don't want him to look terribly surprised. And that can happen. It's kind of crazy how the subtlest of adjustments on an eye can really shift the expression. So no pressure, right? No, there's no pressure. That's a really good start. We'll start with that. Let's scrape along the lashes here. Give us some scrape details. Oh, I love that. That's so pretty. All right. Just babysit those areas if you think you need to, especially if you haven't achieved that scraping yet. Keep an eye on those things. That's so beautiful. I'm just asking myself, do I need to add water anywhere that hasn't dried completely yet to make sure I get watercolor to do watercolory things? And I don't think I do at this point. Let's move on to the nose and the snout and get our first layer on those things. There we go. You can see my colors here a little bit better. There, I'm in the frame. This is so fun. I really missed hanging out with y'all. I will tell him happy birthday. Thank you so much. He will be really excited. He 100% remembers chatting with you. He thought that was just the coolest. Okay, let's do the nose and then we'll hop onto the tongue because the tongue is the most fun. It's so fun. All right, I'm going to grab my Meeden brush, the one that does really good thin and thick lines, and we'll give ourselves a little bit of a roadmap with some black outlines here. And I am doing lunar black this time. You can absolutely do neutral tint, but lunar black just, it granulates. We all know how fun lunar black is. And then sometimes it can create these like ghost outlines. When you paint over a dry area of lunar black with water, you kind of like reactivate it. For some reason, I've seen that it will still kind of leave the edges in place. And it just looks so cool. So I love to see that happen. And I think it's, for me at least, it's still hard to get that to happen intentionally on purpose. But I get pretty lucky sometimes when I just kind of let it, I don't stress about it too much. And I just kind of see what happens when we add water to it. All right, so we have our beautiful outlines in place. I wanted to try to get those nostrils to look a little bit symmetrical. They're a little wonky because of the lighting and the quality of the photo on their reference. So I just took a little moment there to try to make those look a little bit more similar, not too wonky. Because sometimes, I don't know, sometimes I kind of lose that in my eye and I kind of forget to come back to that nostril shape. And then I look at it later and I'm like, well, that's super wonky. How did I miss that? All right, adding quite a bit of water, you can see, touching those edges and as we get to the light side, I love to leave a little bit of a white shape. We'll see. Sometimes I end up painting it all in anyway. But we'll see. All right, beautiful brown, chocolate brown nose. And this client also requested natural, no color preferences here. Okay, she had no color preferences. So that's kind of fun because then I can just kind of do what I'm feeling. Which usually is the dog's natural colors plus a little emphasis of vibrancy. All right, I'm popping in that purple and it's spreading around. It's spreading around really nice because it's ultramarine and a quinacridone color, and both of those, in my experience, spread really nicely. I love ultramarine in a nose. I usually do ultramarine. Like I usually start with ultramarine. But I really wanted to lean into the brown, but I do love a pop of ultramarine. So we'll find a way. We'll see what happens. All right, now I have brown. So I have that quinacridone rust, quinacridone burnt orange. And we'll pop that kind of right over that beautiful purple. And now we can come in with our water only brush and help it move around if it needs help. I like to think about it like if it's doing something really cool, try not to disturb it too much. And I think up here it's doing some really cool things. And it will probably get some pigmented edges around this side. So if I can restrain myself, and I don't always do that, I'm hoping I can just let that hang out and continue to do what it's doing. But I want to get back a little bit of this highlight in the front of the nose. So I'm lifting with my water only brush. And when you lift, you have to have a thirsty brush. So pretty dry. And then after I lift, I almost always come in with water only. Put that right where I lifted. And then I'll get some blooming. Hold on one second. So sometimes you get some blooming, some cool stuff happening. You just get more. Adding water is when watercolor does the things you want to, cool things you want to see it do. So I really like that little highlight we got back. Maybe soften that into some of the edges on here. And then I'll do a similar thing here, kind of soften this color around the nostrils, but still keep that highlight if I can. A little bit of a highlight right around to give it some depth. And then pop in water, because that's what it does. That's when it does the cool things. And I'm scrubbing that lunar black a little bit, because then it'll soften it up. It'll just look a little bit softer and nicer. I'll do the same thing on this side here. And I try really hard to make it darker than I want it to be, because it dries later. We know that about watercolor. But I also don't want to disturb it too much if it's doing some really cool things. So I tell myself I can always glaze it later. And I think we're at that point right now. Like, you know what? We can glaze it later if it needs to be darker. I'm going to grab my grainer brush again, soften those bristles, and maybe see if we could. I got such a big pool. I don't know if I'm going to get maybe a little. Okay, we got a little bit of a hairy edge. That looks kind of neat. I think we'll start with that for now. I like that. That's really pretty. Okay. We'll just babysit that, but I don't think it's going to need too much more, at least for this first layer. What brush are you using to flick out? And I'm assuming you're talking about like the grainer brush. So this is our 1/2 inch flat grainer brush. And so that's kind of what I use to pull wet color to create some textured, some hairy edges. And I have 2 more grainer brushes that are a little bit bigger that I'll use for fur. But this is a short-haired dog, so we'll see what that entails for us when we get to that point of doing the light side and the dark side. So now I'm going to come in, I'm going to paint with the dirty water. And it's not very dirty yet, but I like to do that both so I can see it and so you guys can see it. And we're kind of past that point of doing the detail. So we did the detail of the eyes and the nose. That required a little bit more precision. So now we're on to the 3-step process where I'll still work in sections, and in each section I'll paint with water, step 1, drop in color, step 2, and finish with techniques, step 3. So good amount, lots of shine, so that our colors will move around. And then I'm going to pick up opera pink. And almost every single dog's tongue, pretty much without exception, I use a straight up opera pink near the bottom. It's just so vibrant. Now, if it doesn't really fit your color palette, if you're doing more, maybe you're doing like a moody pastel or whatever it might be, or you really want to stick with natural colors, then opera pink might be not the right call. But it's so pretty. It's so pretty. And I hate that it's fugitive because, I mean, that is a bummer that it'll fade faster. But at the same time, it's too pretty not to enjoy it while we have it. So I'm going to take that same brush and pick up my beautiful purple. And again, this is both the ultramarine pink and the quinacridone pink in that well. And if you don't have those colors, I would drop in some ultramarine blue. Watch that spread out. And then lunar black. And I'm still going to be doing some lunar black too. And you can see here how I have a little bit of a margin. I didn't go all the way to the top just yet. And we'll finish that with our grainer brush to create that hairy edge of the snout. I am going all the way to the edges of the rest of the tongue though. Oh my gosh, it's doing some really cool things. I think part of that is because we have rough paper too, so there's just so much texture for that paint to move around on. I love rough paper. I was gonna paint on hot press. So my aunt gave me, because she's amazing, a ton of watercolor paper that she's not using anymore. You know, most of it is hot press. So I'm like, you know, let's give this a try again. And I was gonna use it for one of my workshops, and I was testing it out. Oh, and it drove me nuts. I couldn't do it. I don't think I even have the sample that I tested on. So it's going to become, I think it's going to become giveaways, door prizes for my workshoppers. And I don't know, I got to figure out hot press because some people just love it. But for me, I think the water dries so fast. Just so fast. I have like no time to do what I need to do. All right, I pulled up that lunar black. We popped in the lunar black at the top for the shadow, pulled it up with my grainer brush. And sometimes when you pull color like that, it kind of dulls it out because you're just, you know, you're moving the color around and the color is going places. So it's not as vibrant as that initial wash that you laid down. Okay, putting this kind of to match the shadow I see in the reference photo. This is so pretty. I'm really trying to take care not to disturb this little whatever's happening right there. But I am going to take my, there you go. Just busted up that shape a little bit. And now the only reason we have this tool is for this line in their tongue. But I think it's such a cool way to do the line. And for me, it takes like the pressure out of having to paint a really thin line right there. So I'm just pressing hard while it's wet. And then that paint, especially that lunar black, because it likes to sink, will fill in that indentation and create that line. And you could even go further if you wanted to and create some of the texture in the tongue. You can see how they have like, even in this reference photo, you can kind of see it. That texture with those lines further in the tongue. So I won't press as hard. I'll create like thinner lines and I'll be a little bit more sparing. I don't want that texture to command all of our attention. But that can look really cool, especially once it's dry. Sometimes when it's wet, it leaves a little bit to be desired, but it looks really cool once it's dry. So we'll keep our eye on that. How cool is this? The granulation. It's making me want to just rough paper it for the rest of my life. It's just doing such cool things. Oh my gosh, this is fun. Yes, grainer brushes are amazing. So I would highly recommend just getting a couple of those and playing around with it. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. All right, I'm going to go back to the eyes for another layer on the eyes. And the biggest reason why, but there's multiple reasons, why I have quinacridone rust, quinacridone burnt orange permanently in my palette again. I used it for ages before I took it off of there to make like a more minimal palette. And then I remembered quickly once I used it again why I had it on there in the first place. But the biggest reason is for eyes. So it's just the perfect brown for dog eyes. And almost every single dog eye is brown. Unless you got like a husky or some kind of dog that has blue eyes. In my experience, I rarely get to paint blue dog eyes. It's really fun when I get to do that. So quinacridone rust, your best friend for brown eyes. So I'm filling in that iris shape, really, really heavy mix of this quinacridone rust, because what we want to do down the road in a hot minute is actually lift. Quinacridone colors are just, I think their true beauty shines when you lift. When you let it kind of stain the paper by putting a heavy mix down and then lifting some of it off. And at the same time, you're incorporating water, right? So it's like a twofold awesomeness when you're lifting. So super heavy mix of that beautiful quinacridone rust. And then we'll come in with our water-only brush. I would say you're going to want control with this. So after you dip it in water, definitely dry it on your blot it. And then you can come in and I'm going to kind of fill in maybe where I didn't quite paint to the edges with my rust. Bring it all the way into the black. Maybe bring it into the blue just a tiny bit. And then you get to lift. Are you guys ready? This is my favorite part. So then we'll come in and lift that beautiful rust right in the center of the iris. Because we want the outside and the inside of the iris to actually be darker. That beautiful highlight of color is right in the middle of that iris area. Isn't that amazing? Like how easy that was? It's so pretty. And then what we can do too is I'm going to take some of that purple. Another reason I just like having this purple. Really heavy mix on here. And if my outside edges of the rust aren't quite dark enough, This purple is just the beautiful, really pretty color to add depth to the outside or even the inside edges of that iris area. So I'm going to pop in a little purple up here too. And then I think what I might do is soften some of that purple into that pretty reflection near the top. That's beautiful. I'm going to have to play around with the dark. I might add more quinacridone rust on that outside iris where it's more in shadow and make that highlight not quite as intense as it'll be on this light side eye. So let's do that water only brush, blot it so you have a lot of control, and let's have fun giving that middle center of our iris a beautiful highlight. Isn't that crazy? That's crazy. It gets me every single time. And I found quinacridone colors especially are just gorgeous for lifting. They stain the paper and it's just perfect. It's so pretty. All these cool things about watercolor paint, right? The fact that they are transparent and that some of them do stain and that some of them do granulate. And at first, I think when you're a beginner, those things are hard. They're kind of frustrating because you don't know which colors do those things. And it's easy to be frustrated because every color does something different. So it's like, okay, I totally understand why it's a hard medium at the beginning. Because you have to get used to all that. But then once you kind of get a handle on understanding what colors do what, then you harness that and you lean into it, and that's what really takes your paintings. And you just can't stand it. It's so fun. Okay, add a tiny bit of purple. I don't need a ton. Let's see. There's really a lot of darkness. Really a lot of depth. I'm going to actually add some of my blue and make that purple shadow a little bit more intense. And then let's blend that reflection out into the iris a little bit. I really like that for now. And I'm blending that blue into the purple on that little shadow. Really, really cool. And yes, this video is just always going to live on YouTube. So the replay will be available afterwards and you can come and go as you like. So no worries there. It will just always be here for you. I just want to zoom out so you can see the whole thing. Our tongue is doing some really cool things too. All right, I'm going to zoom out a little bit because we're going to move on to the ears and the dark side. So look at that. Can you see what I mean by opera pink though? Like there's no other color that does that. So we just got to enjoy it while it lasts. Although I don't know how long it really takes to fade when you don't put it in direct sun. I have paintings where it hasn't faded yet. And they're a couple years old already, a few years old. So hopefully we got a lot of time. All right, zooming out. We're going to start on the dark side. Now, in some dogs, the ears are very much kind of like a separate entity than the rest of the fur. And I don't think that's really the case with this dog. So I think what we're going to do instead of the ears separately, I think we are going to just kind of morph the ear into the dark side. And I just want to think through that for a hot second. So this is a good time. I have so many like tiny round brushes in my hand. And those are great for our details that we just did. But I like to reset a little bit now that we're moving on to the body. We're going to employ our bigger brushes. So I'm going to be employing a lot of like these flat brushes and then our bigger grainer brushes. So I think this is a great time to just take 2 minutes and then I can get some water too. I'm going to take a 2-minute break, kind of reset the brushes that I have so I don't have to be holding 20 at the same time. And then we'll hop into the dark side when I come back. I'll see you soon. All right. It's gonna be fun. Okay. So if you got my email this morning, I alluded to a technique for short-haired dogs, and I just want to show you this dog I just did. So very similar coat to the dog we're doing today in terms of length of hair and fur patterns. And you can see that not a ton of grainer brush. We have some grainer brush edges, right? And we have some harder edges, blended edges, blooming. But the point is, instead of grainer brushing all the fur, because I don't want to do that, that would make it look flat. We can do washes of our shadow color to just show that this side is in shadow. So this is a yellow lab, and it was a really light yellow lab. Obviously, the lab is not purple, but that's the color we gave the shadow. And I really love how it turned out. So sometimes I have to be careful because clients don't like a really intense shadow that makes the color of the dog look wonky, like not real what the color is. In this case, the client loved it. I love it too. But I just thought that, this is such a cool hack to give you a shadow. And that's how we did it with this light dog. So I'm excited to kind of do that with this dog too. So I'm debating in my head, do I do it with ultramarine blue? I just love ultramarine blue plus a chocolate color. And I have a dog. Maybe I could pull it up so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Sometimes, just having these examples so y'all can see what I mean. I'm going to try to pull up Moose. So and it's actually a full paint along. Although I'm not sure if it's members or not. I can't always remember off the top of my head. But $5 a month to become a member, so it's not crazy. I'm going to pull up Moose here. And you can kind of see what I mean by that color combo of chocolate plus ultramarine blue. So pretty. I have a couple dogs where I did that. Okay. Oh, I found it. I'm excited to show you. Oops, I might have just closed it out. All right, hold on. Oh, please. There we go. It's coming. All right, so let me show you Moose. Another short-haired dog. Might have some chocolate lab in him. I don't know. He's got a wonkier face, so this is Moose, and you can see how we have a really similar color palette with that brown, and then pops of ultramarine blue, like an unadulterated ultramarine blue, where it's not mingling to make a purple. I really, really like that. So I don't know. We're gonna see if maybe we can kind of make that happen today. But I'm talking a lot just because I get excited. So let's start with the beautiful dark side of Midas. And make sure I'm zoomed out as much as I can be here. Apologize. This is usually the stuff I get to edit out if I don't go live. But I never not go live now. It's just so much easier. I don't have to edit a video. All right. Step 1, paint with water. And I'm going to paint where I see the darkest darks in general. And then if you have the desire to finish a certain edge with grainer brush, then that's where you'd want to leave a little bit of a margin. And we'll have the kind of built-in margins for just because we're not putting water everywhere to make our midtones with some grainer brush too. So I'm going to push this into, I think I'm going to bring it all the way down into the body. And up here right next to the ear for that beautiful shadow. Kind of up a little bit into the head. And putting enough there. Rough paper, we have more time. We have the gift of time with rough paper that our water's not going to dry too insanely fast. I'm going to bring it all the way over into the shadow of the dark side. In a way, this reference photo is awesome because of the lighting. Although it's a little from the top, but it's also from the side. So we're just leaning into the side lighting part of the reference photo. And then I really need to zoom out a little bit more than this. Hold on, sorry about that. I need to zoom out just a little bit more if I can. I have like this gooseneck thing and it always just kind of slowly falls. There we go. That's pretty good. So you can kind of see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it all the way down, bring that water all the way down to the bottom of the page. So we're connecting kind of anchoring, I call it anchoring the subject to the page. And we don't have to be super precise, although I am going to bring it all the way to this gum line. Not quite to like the fuzzy part of the gum line. Again, that would be an edge we want to maybe finish with the grainer brush. Okay, I like this. We can come in and do some brush work to finish this in a more abstract-y way. So great start for our dark side. And ultramarine blue. I'm going to start with ultramarine blue. This is going to be really fun. This is going to be really fun. Okay, a pop of ultramarine blue. So I love to do it, let's do it next to the face. So a nice clean, beautiful ultramarine blue, super heavy mix of that on my 1-inch, it's a size 20, so it's 20 flat shader. So it's a little bit thinner than like a wash brush. I like that because then it's not going too crazy. And we'll let that spread out as part of the side of the face. And then maybe let's put a pop that in the ear. And a little pop up here. Just try to think about like where the light, where this particular shadow would sensibly be on the dog. And then you can have your grainer brush handy too if you want to maybe finish some of this with grainer brush. I'd like to pull a little bit up into this eye area, but I love a beautiful like abstract edge too. And the other thing I want to do, I got a little bit beautiful. I'm just going to make that more of a dot shape. I like that, so I'm going to keep that little mistake. Okay, and it's, you can see it loves to spread, so which is great, really fun, but it's also getting a lot lighter, less concentrated. So I'm going to pop in some more in kind of in the same shape, that cheek area, and maybe a little bit more here. This drip that's happening is kind of, well, it's not kind of, it's like so gorgeous. Maybe I want to lean into that too. So I'm going to blot this so that doesn't drip. And I'm going to put a good amount of this ultramarine blue right here to see, maybe it'll see if it, what it does when we tip the paper. Maybe I'm going to keep the paper tipped a little bit, kind of like a drastic tip into a subtle bend, not as intense down here. It's really, really pretty. I know, and then I get lost. I just want to like watch it move and dry. I actually want to watch paint dry. Kind of funny. All right, let's come in with our purple and our brown while we still have some water on the page. So I'm going to take my flat brush that already has purple on it from when we did the tongue. I didn't clean that off yet. I'm going to grab more purple, really heavy mix of those two beautiful purpley colors. And I'm going to go right next to the blue. And that'll help us give us a buffer when we lay down our brown so we don't get green. I really don't want green on this painting. I think if we got green on it, it would start to look like a rainbow, because then it would just kind of have all the colors. And that could be, I don't know. I'm not going for a rainbow with this one. I'm going to put some purple right next to here. So let's see, we'll have a good buffer there. Let's maybe get some here so we have a buffer here, although there's some beautiful blooming right there. So it's that conundrum of, do I let that happen or do I come in with my color? And I think in this case, I'm going to just surround it with some purple. I think it's more important to me that I don't get green than to lose that blooming that was happening. So now I'm going to put some of this purple. I'm going to have to kind of overlap that blue a tiny bit, just on the edges. I have so much on my brush. Like almost chunky. It's a lot. Okay, now let's come in. I'm not too excited about that look, so maybe I'll come in with some water. Blend that in a little bit. I don't want it to all become purple though. All right, I think I'm gonna take it back down. Grab some more of this beautiful purple. I'm gonna grab a little bit more of that blue. I want that to be a really pure, pretty blue. And then I'll finish a little bit with this grainer brush on here too. Maybe pull some of that purple up. Really pretty. Pulling some purple over here. Thinking about our edges. Got to think about those too before everything dries. I'm going to bring that blue all the way down to the bottom. And I think I might actually put black there instead of brown. So let's grab, I'm going to take the same brush that has my blue on it. I think I'm kind of done with blue, so I'm going to just grab my lunar black. And this plays really well with brown. Well, not really well with brown, I shouldn't say that. It definitely plays better than ultramarine blue does. So that's why I'm choosing this black. I'm going to grab this and pop it in where I really want that depth. And then maybe I'll go back to purple a little bit. I'm going to grab more water here. That's so pretty. Okay, we're getting there, you guys. I'm going to grab a new brush. I have a lot of these flat brushes. I just bought this size 21 because I just need more so that I don't have to clean them between washes. I don't want to do that. I'm dripping a little too much from my blue, so maybe I'll lift some of these up. All right, I think some of these are just going to actually. All right, so let's grab brown now before this dries completely. And my brown is going to be that beautiful connector and rust again. So I'm going to grab that with a new flat brush. Big brushes too are kind of a hack for not having your painting look overworked or too tight, because you're kind of forcing yourself to make these big, bold strokes when you paint with big, big brushes like this. So I'm going to pop in quinacridone colors too. In my experience, especially quinacridone gold, much more so than even quinacridone rust. They love to push the other colors around. Just really fun. Really, really fun. All right, where else do I want to put this? I want to think about the edges. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to move this down a little bit. I love to think about the edges too. Like, do I like that? And do I want to keep that? I don't always know the answer. I really like this. So maybe I'll just kind of make that part of, just let that hang out a little bit more. I'm trying to get a really, really heavy mix, like a lot of pigment on my brush, so that when it spreads out, I don't completely lose it. That granulation, so pretty. It's because of the rough paper too. Like the most beautiful thing. I'm gonna pull a little bit of this edge. It's like, oh, you know, it's still an animal. We still want to have some fluffiness to it. A little bit down there. And I'm gonna kind of clean that grainer brush off, get a lot of water here, and just let some of this color mingle into the highlights on the dark side here, while at the same time maybe getting a little bit of grainer brush texture. I'm going to grab that brown again. See, that's the dark. So this ear is actually kind of light. All right, so I put a good amount of rust there for the ear. And I don't want to overpaint it. I don't want to completely fill this in, I don't think. Maybe I'll just soften a little bit here. And then maybe I'll even lift a little bit of that out. It's a very intense white shape up here right now that I'm not keen on. So it might just be a matter of glazing and lifting and adding water at the end. Pop in a little bit of purple. I am getting green in some areas. So your best remedy for that is to just pop in a little purple, and it should cover up that green. It's really pretty though. It's really intense. Right now I'm a little nervous, hoping I didn't paint too much. I'm popping in some water to push that gold out a little bit. The other thing we can do is some water resist, but it's really wet. It might not work right now, but I can try to just introduce a little bit of water to push the pigment away and catch a little bit of fur texture. Might just have to babysit that. It's not doing too much just yet on that. I don't think we overpainted it. I think I can take a deep breath. I think I'm okay. That blue is intense, isn't it? It's so pretty though. Okay. Well, so somebody commented about hot press paper granulating, colors granulating on hot press. So I just have to I have to be open-minded to it again and keep trying with it because I do love granulation. So that would be really fun to see on hot press paper. So thank you for commenting on that. And if anybody else has more experience with hot press paper and they really like it, please share what you like about it. I would love to see that. My largest grainer brush I have is a 3/4 inch filbert shape, and it is all Princeton. So honestly, all of my brushes would be Princeton. Right now, I just really like that line because it's just cheap and it's reliable. But some of these brushes are just super old and they still work. So I'm not going to get rid of them or replace them until they're busted. But Princeton has every brush type that I recommend. So it's just kind of nice to consolidate and have one line of brushes for that. Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. Yes. So somebody's saying that, thank you for using dirty water when you do step 1. And yes, it helps me too, honestly. And then sometimes you get a little bit of a halo, like pigmented edge when you use dirty water like that. Oh, that can look really, really cool. Okay, I think before we move on to the light side, I think I maybe crept in a little too much here, and it's just the value is just so intense. So I'm going to just lift off a little bit of that. And you kind of see how I'm kind of going against the grain of my brush to do this. And it's scrubbing some of that pigment away. And I thought, well, maybe it's a little easier to lift before things get super dry. There we go. Nothing too crazy, just a little bit of a lighter edge right there. And then before I move on to, maybe I want to think about a little bit fluffy grainer brush, or yeah, grainer brush edge. I don't want to do the whole thing grainer brush, then it just looks kind of goofy. There you go. Soften. I over grainer brushed it right there. I'm going to soften a little bit of that out. There we go. Don't grainer brush every edge. I'm not sure that that's what we need to do. Okay, I'm trying to think about the next section. So we have the light side, which we'll paint as minimally as possible. And then we have the snout. And the snout usually requires a layer or two. So let's do that first before we move on to the light side. So same process, we'll paint with water on the darkest areas of the snout. And I am going to leave a margin between the snout and the dark side that we've already painted, at least kind of right here where this is a really important highlight to get the shape of the face. So I really want to take care to not lose that. And, you know, if I do and I have and it happens, you can lift it. It's just something I want to be aware of as we're painting this now. But I am going to kind of travel a little bit into the dark side as we get up higher on the snout. And travel into this and a little bit here. Touching the nose so some of that color can migrate around. And then I'll go more minimally on the light side of the snout. We want to paint this area less. It's just fun. I'm already just getting lost in watching that color travel around. The other cool thing too is I still at least have a pool of color here. So why don't I just grab that or bring some water into the equation here, and I can let that color come around to this area. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. I'm losing it. It's so gorgeous. Okay, let's do our purple on the darkest darks. Come in here, keep some of that edge, and then we'll come in right away with our beautiful brown. Really heavy mix of that quinacridone burnt orange. Taking me a while to get enough of that in my brush. The other thing too is that you have a big brush, so you have to put a lot of pigment in there. And I'm going to put that almost right over the purple and let that travel. I think it needs a little bit of lunar black in there too. Not as much. It's tricky because our shadow is blue, right? And black would be significantly darker. So I'm going to put a little bit of lunar black in there. Because I still kind of want this blue to be somewhat the darkest dark. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just something I'm kind of thinking about. I want to talk you through my thought processes putting all these colors down. All right, I need more beautiful brown. A little bit of brown here, a little bit on the light side. And then I think I'm going to migrate a little bit to purple here. I think our light side highlight color is going to be quinacridone gold. So I'm going to try to not put any blue on the light side. But we're not putting any blue on the snout just yet anyway. Let's see. I'm going to finish a little bit of grainer brush here. A little bit more black. I'm just helping, I'm trying to help the colors to mingle a little bit. I think I need to add water for that to kind of happen. There we go. And a little bit of grainer brush. Nothing too crazy. What do we think about that? I'm wondering if I feel like maybe my shape is off just a touch. I'm going to bring some more purple into that. And lift that line back. I lost it a little bit. That's cool. All right, we got to think about texture techniques too before this dries too much. Pop in some more water. Softening those edges a little bit. They don't all need to be super hard edges like that. Pop in some more of our pretty purple. There we go. I like that a lot. That's really beautiful. Let's see if we can scrape on these areas where it's getting close to being dry. My light side is definitely there, at least on that purple. Pop in a little bit more and make sure I got the shape of that light side snout in place. This is fun, isn't it? It's so fun to achieve scraping. I just love that. It's like my favorite. Popping in a little bit of lunar black. Give it some depth along the nose area too. A little bit of lunar black down here. Maybe a little bit there, and then we can move it around with our grainer brush. You know, and we could even introduce our little bit of quinacridone gold right now. And it's a good idea to do that when you're at this almost dry stage because it pushes your colors around. It's kind of insane what it can do. So I'm going to pop a little bit right at the bottom. I would just say make sure your tongue is completely dry before you pop in this color because it really will readily make green when you mix it with black. Isn't that crazy? You can just watch it push the other color around. Just absolutely wild. So I'm going to put a little bit more on the light side there too. Introduce a little more water because my light side is getting kind of dry. I really like what's happening over here. I'm going to tap in a little water. Maybe we'll get some water resist shapes. Might not be dry enough for that yet though. And I'm going to pull this beautiful, beautiful gold a little bit into the light side here. And then while we're here, I think we're traveling into light side territory here, so I'm thinking about the shapes too. The shape of his face. And I'll pop in some gold along. Some gold here. Let that move around. And I would say absolutely it's worth having both quinacridone gold and quinacridone rust or quinacridone burnt orange on your palette. They are actually pretty darn different colors. And quinacridone gold pushes your other watercolors, in my experience, a lot more so than the other quinacridones do. So do I want a little bit of a grainer brush? Maybe? I'm gonna pop in some water too. Quinacridone gold I find likes to bloom, and it needs water to do that. So I'm gonna give it some. Let's think about scraping again. I wanted to scrape some whiskers too, so not just like fur highlights, because muzzles in general just have a lot of texture. So we can put like these little stubble, right? He's got stubble and he's got long whiskers. Even though unfortunately you can't really see that in the reference photo. But he's got it. We know it's there. So we're gonna try to cluster it. It can be really fun to kind of go to town when you get to that scraping step and you actually get it to work. I am very guilty of that, of like just going to town with scraping. So I'm going to try really hard to kind of cluster it and then not do too much. Especially because we have more whiskers we can do with the ink pen too. So pretty though. You can't achieve whiskers that look like that in any other technique that I found. Nothing else looks as cool as a scraped whisker. Yes, I'm so glad you're here. You're on a live too. I apologize. I rescheduled this particular live twice. The first time I had an appointment, and then the second time I was sicker than this. So I was like, I can't. I'd be coughing the whole time. It happens. I was like, it's a free live. It happens. I can reschedule it if I need to. But I know it's a bummer when you guys plan. You want to make plans to attend the live. So I try really hard not to have to reschedule them. Okay, this is just gorgeous. I kind of want to zoom in. And I should have done this a while ago. I apologize. I should have zoomed in on this now, since we're kind of focused on that right now. I want you to see we have some really cool movement. I'm going to introduce a little bit more water because I like what's happening, but I don't necessarily like the shape of the bloom that's happening. So I'm kind of saying, hey, this bloom can maybe have this shape instead, by scrubbing along the edges and then introducing a little bit more water. And if you're losing some of your scraping, just keep that in mind. Maybe you want to try scraping again after you kind of mingle with what's happening here. Introducing quite a bit of water here. I like how it's pushing my pigments out, and I like how it's kind of even making the highlight a little bit more lighter, pushing this purple in a really pretty way. This movement of the paint, and I think that was from the quinacridone gold, because it really just forces colors to move around. I'm going to try to just sprinkle in some water there, just see what happens. Maybe we'll get some cool water resist. But it's kind of wet. It's kind of wet for water resist to work really well. This is so pretty. It's so pretty. I have some green happening over here, so I'm like, we might have to glaze with some purple at the end. This is like, it's so granular compared to the paper I've been painting on lately. It's a little different. I'm going to zoom out just a tiny bit, and we will do the light side, maybe a little bit more than a tiny bit. And I just want to make sure when we're thinking about the light side that we paint it as minimally as possible. Oh, good. The rescheduling works for some people. That's very good. It works out. And the replay is always here. Look at this though. Can you even see that? I don't know if you can see that or not. But I have some wonky water. Okay, you can. Here. I don't know if I like that very much. I'm going to spray it. And a nice clean Kleenex, and let's see if I can kind of, oh, that helped a ton. Too much splatter can be kind of distracting. That definitely took care of it. All right, let's kind of do the middle, and then we'll work in our way into the light side. I'm gonna grab my water only and paint here along the dark side. And I am touching the areas we've already painted. And I'm going to go into the light side eyebrow a little bit. And then I'll pop some water on the top. Kind of filled in the forehead, honestly. But we won't paint the whole forehead. And then we'll bring it into that shadow of the ear, which is this. So it kind of comes here and then here. And we'll start with that. I don't want to get too far ahead. And I think we have quite a bit of purple, but I want to do a little bit of purple in the super darks. Maybe a little bit of purple here. A little bit of purple here. And then I'll switch to brown. Just popping it on with my flat brush and letting it move around a little bit. And then I'll switch to my brown. This is my beautiful brown. And this is kind of where brushwork, I would say, comes into play a little bit more as we approach the light side, because we're painting more minimally, so our brush strokes have a little bit more impact. We're not going to be kind of covering up the whole entire surface with color, so we can take our brushes and kind of use that to our advantage to give shape to the head and for patterns happening. And I'm so reminded at how much paper impacts how your paint behaves, because it's just doing different things than I'm used to than the paper I've been painting on for months. I don't know if I like that very much. I'm going to soften that out. A little too intense. Let's see, where else should we get a little bit more greener brush? kind of like how some of these are. I'm going to grab some purple and brown with my grainer brush. Need more water on there. And paint some fur patterns with that. And I'm gonna add a little bit more water. Do the light side along the snout edge. And we'll keep going a little bit on this light side. Just kind of doing it as we go. Purple. This is a pretty dark section right here. I want that in place. More bold brush strokes. And if you know what, bold brush strokes can be a little bit intimidating, but I always tell myself that I can come in and I can lift it. Especially right after you put it down, you do have this window of opportunity to just take it off again, soften it a little bit. All right, let's see. I want to switch to my brown. Actually, I kind of want to switch to just our quinacridone gold for a hot second. I'm out of my brushes, my pretty brushes. All right, I'm gonna clean this one off and use this for gold to clean it off really good because it had blue on it. Okay, so a new flat brush here. Heavy mix of our beautiful, beautiful gold. And I think that'll help. It's looking kind of red in a way that I'm not fond of. So let's pop in our gold right next to these areas of purple, and it should push it out and be a little bit of a bully, but that's kind of what we want right now. And get some pretty gold happening in here. I want to have my scraping tool in here too. I just thought, well, we got a little bit of an opportunity in our snout. Okay, keep that out. The other thing I'd like to do is water resist if we can. So I'm going to get a clean grainer brush, my bigger 3/4 inch filbert one, and we can try to water resist so it's very much controlled. So it's a swipe level of water. It's about probably 30% full of water here, so that it kind of deposits a controllable level of water and pushes that pigment away. Maybe even pulls some of the pigment out. It's pretty. I don't know, that's a little too, it's a little too stripey. The water resist worked a little too well right there. There you go. Cool. I like that a lot. All right, we still have our yellow. Let's just finish out the ear and the light side. I'm going to put a little bit more water in here. kind of let that paint migrate into that white shape to soften it just a tiny bit. And then let's put some water in the ear. And then I'm going to come in with my brown. I think maybe I overdid it on the purple a little bit. That I kind of want to save the day with some brown now. Again, doing more kind of intentional brush strokes too. I might grab a tiny bit of lunar black on my brush that has brown, and we'll try to get that value where we need it to be for the ear. How fun was that? Just from like a thoughtful brush stroke. Just so much, you can do so much with that. I might want to glaze with gold when we get to that point. All right, while I have black on that brush, do I need to kind of think about value anywhere else? Because this is a pretty dark dog. So I don't want to miss out on that. I probably went a little too high on that one. There you go. Ooh, I like that. That's doing well. That's awesome. That's super fun. Thinking about texture techniques before we move on. Do we need to do anything? I might just introduce a tiny bit of water. I love what's happening on this ear, but I want to bring it all the way out to the edge. Really, 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 really pretty. I like that. I'm going to call it on that. Let's just finish the body of the light side with some water. Boy, my cat is really crying for attention right now. It's funny. He'll go around the house and just cry like that when he wants to be loved. And he's only ready for love when he's ready for love. He does that on his own time, not your time. Cats. Oh, I love cats so much. Okay, so I'm going right next to the tongue, leaving a little bit of margin here on the dark side because I think there's some lip showing. You can't really tell in the reference photo, but we're going to put it there anyway. And some margin here. And I think I'm going to use just brown. I think we've put plenty of purple in this dog. And especially, too, if I put purple here, we'll kind of lose the depth, like the punchiness of this tongue. I'm going to do brown and gold. So let's start with our brown. It has black on it right now. So I'm going to save some of that pigment. If my brush is really full of paint like that, or even not even really full, but just has paint in it, I'll try to save it, put it back in my palette before I wash it off. Take a water break here. All right, I'm gonna grab maybe more clean-ish water. Let's do our dark brown first. And I have blue right there, so I might have to put some purple here. So that we don't get green. And we'll bring this brown all the way up to here. All right, I'm gonna grab my grainer brush, make this a little bit fluffy in some parts. Nothing crazy because I kind of want to go put my gold in there right away. So I'm gonna grab my gold. This one has gold on it. Let's pop that right on the edge of that beautiful brown. And then maybe we'll employ our grainer brush a little bit better. Let's do our darker brown. I'm going to try to do like an intentional brush stroke here. Maybe you'll see the whole edge of my painting. Oh, I really like that though. Well, we're going to just go for it. We're going to see what happens with a little brush stroke right there. I like that though too. Bring that water into the gold a little bit. It's really beautiful. I connect it with a little bit of water. I don't want that to be too distracting. There we go. Now let's take our purple and let's blend this area together so it's not green. So I'm going to grab a good mix of our purple, put that in here. And can you see it? Okay, you can. I'm going to put purple too, where I kind of got some green. And I might soften that. I don't need that much brush information. That's excessive. I like the body to be pretty loose and have a combination of kind of brush strokey edges, hard edges, blooming, all those kinds of things look really nice. All right, I'm gonna come in. I'm getting water resist, so I may as well lean into that and just do some kind of feathery edges where that's happening. And then I'll do it here too. So right where we have kind of this, where I'm kind of thinking that side of the mouth is. I don't know if I guessed that very well. I'm gonna move it up a little bit into this and make that tongue. Yeah, that looks better. That looks more. That just looks nicer. And we could do some water resist here too. So maybe we'll catch some. There, it's almost dry. 30 seconds away. And water only, 30% full on your grainer brush. Get some of that water pushing that pigment away. Really, really beautiful. And I could grainer brush a little bit of this too. A little bit. Combination is really beautiful when you can get a couple of things happening. I'm going to soften some of that edge up there. Maybe a little bit here. Oh, we're getting like a really pretty pigmented edge, kind of ghost halo. Oh, that's so pretty. This should bloom out really pretty too. It's fun. I feel like, oh, I can finally breathe a little bit. Like, okay, I think it worked. Came together. I would say it's probably more vibrant than I was in my head envisioning. But I love it. I just love it. I think this blue is just, I really, really like that. That's really gorgeous. Okay, so we're at a good point to kind of, now we kind of have to shift back to detail mode a little bit, where we kind of have to finish up softening things like that. I gotta get my black brush. Actually, this is pretty purpley, isn't it? I'm gonna give it a black outline anyway. So I'm gonna take my lunar black on my black brush, and then my tongue is dry, so I can kind of anchor myself on that a little bit. I'm just gonna put a little bit of a black outline here along the edge of the gums. And then I'll come in with purple on a round brush there. I think I can go back to zooming in because we're kind of moving towards detail here. And then I'll finish this off with some purple. I'm going to grab a little bit of buff titanium too, because the gums just look really good when you have some opacity in there. Plus, buff titanium loves to spread. It can be really, really cool like that, in that way. And I'm going to soften that into, I wonder if I can get back some of my scraping. A little bit. All right, I think I'm gonna have to wait for that to dry. It's kind of mingling with the fur, but that looks fine. I'm gonna take this brush, grab, so it has purple on it, and I'm gonna grab some more lunar black, I think, and we're gonna finish off this kind of hairy edge of the snout that we have to. I'm gonna grab actually a little bit of brown on there, kind of a heavy mix. Pop that in. So I'm going right on the dry paper. Really saturated brush, kind of dry brush too, so we have some control here. Finish off that part of the snout. And then let's grab our buff titanium purple here. And we'll finish off this part, this gum line over here. I need to make it lighter, so I'm gonna actually finish it with my water only brush. Pull that beautiful pink. That's pretty. I'm gonna pop in a little bit more water. And maybe it'll do some cool things. Maybe we could do that on our, oh my gosh, my cats are crazy. They're so funny. I'm gonna do that over here too. I'm gonna lift a little bit and then pop in some water. Just a little tiny something that maybe it'll do something cool. I want to see it a little bit more depth. Pop in a little bit of black. And then our water only brush. Blend that into the rest of the gums. really beautiful. What do we think of our nose? Kind of moving up the portrait. I really, really like it. I think we kind of got the depth I was hoping for right away. It's really beautiful. I might soften. I'm just going to try to scrub this harder edge shape into the softer highlight. Soften that a little bit. But I really love, that's all lunar black, making that look. And it looks a little wonky on the camera, but I think that's because my paper is a little bit rippled. So it looks a little distorted, but it's not actually that high up on the painting. It just looks like that on my monitor. So excuses, excuses. I'm going to pull some of this beautiful shadow color to the snout over here too. Wow, but we have highlights. That's absolutely gorgeous. We don't really need too much more. I might put a little bit more lunar black and kind of bring that down into the lip area. Maybe a little bit more than that. I think that's a kind of an important detail. I want to make sure that's in there. I really like the nose, so you could pop in some yellow. I'm not sure if I want to yet. That's something I kind of want to think about. And by yellow, I mean quinacridone gold. Because sometimes that can look really cool. Like I have this guy, and you can see how I glazed some yellow on there. And that the same quinacridone gold yellow on the light side. So that could look really cool, but I'm kind of like getting a lot of yellow. We've put a lot, and I should say gold on this dog. I'm not sold on putting that gold in the nose just yet. So I think what I want to do is sit on that for a hot second. And we're not done yet. I'm not going to sign off yet, but when I do, I will make sure to post the finished painting. You know, I think I've already sold myself on it. But either way, I'll post the finished painting as a post on YouTube. Let's pop in a little bit of gold. Oh my gosh, right? We had to do that. Yeah, I kind of had to do that. Just a little bit. I don't want to get green, so I'm trying not to put it like near the black. I do like that though. Okay. That's all I want to do. I gotta take a break. Calm down. Okay, so now we just have kind of the eyes and ears with some of these shapes that are a little harsh. Thinking about softening those. So I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller. Oh, it's really pretty though. So at this point, you can glaze more yellow on the light side if you want, if it needs it. I think maybe a little bit on that ear wouldn't be a bad idea. But I really want to make sure we get the eyes in a good place too. But I'm just going to soften some of this color into the highlight on the ears. I'm kind of scrubbing again against the grain on my bristles. And I'll let that color pop into the rest of the ear. And maybe I will bring that color kind of into that part of the ear too. And maybe a little bit of gold. Sometimes a little pop of that highlight color in on the shadow side can bring some kind of balance to the painting. I'm actually going to do that with this area right next to the purple because I don't want it to get into the blue. And it's getting into the blue a little bit. I'm gonna lift that off. Lift a little bit of that right there. That's beautiful. I'm really happy with that. Put some gold down there too. And hopefully you can kind of see where I put that. That really helps that ear stand out. You can tell that it's actually an ear. Okay, I'm gonna do something kind of nuts. I'm gonna grab some cobalt teal. I'm gonna see what that looks like on this part of the ear. I love like a pop. And when I say pop, I mean like hardly any in a very strategic place of cobalt teal. It's opacity. It's just cool. It's just cool that it does that it kind of covers things up too. All right, I don't want to get green, and I just laid down a lot of yellow. So did I shoot myself in the foot? I'm not sure. I'm gonna come in with some purple, and I'm gonna opera pinkify that purple. There you go. I want a little bit more of that cobalt teal, but I might be wise to put more of it on after that yellow dries. I really like that though. It's kind of wild. And then the other thing, I'd like to connect kind of the ear to this ear area. The ear to the ear. I'm going to grab ultramarine blue and pop that ear, kind of connect it, separate it from kind of the rest of his body right there. And then I'll soften it in. That's a good start for fixing that intense white shape. I really like where we're at with the eyes. I'm gonna add some purple though. Let's grab some of our, I have buff titanium on that purple, and I definitely don't want buff titanium next to the eyes, because that would be opacity that we're not really after. I grabbed a purple, kind of gonna block it in. And then I'll come in with our water only brush and soften those areas. I'm gonna grab our ultramarine blue. I think that's what this needs. Tiny bit of that. A little bit of that blue here. Give it some depth on the eye. And we'll pop that all the way into the black. That might have been the best call I made for this entire painting. Was a little bit of ultramarine right there. That really gave it the depth I think I was hoping for. All right, I'm gonna soften some of this ultramarine blue into this white shape. Very pretty. Really like that. Now it's just a matter of, do we have the shape of the eye right? I'm gonna put some black on here and make sure I have enough depth here. I'm not sure I do yet. I don't want to get rid of that beautiful ultramarine though. Soften that in with a little water. I'm gonna grab a little bit more ultramarine. I think I'm just trying to get, more so than adding color right now, I'm trying to get that value in a good place so that we see accurate depth in his features. So that's why I'm adding, and I'm adding ultramarine instead of something else because that's kind of our shadow color here. And I've definitely added enough purple, in my opinion. Just softening that in a little bit. It's a little too intense. There, that really helped. That was definitely what that side needed. And waxing too will really help make sure that that black kind of evens out. I am going to put a little pop of purple. That's cute. At the bottom. I think that needed to be a hair darker too. That's better. Maybe a tiny bit of blue in that purple. Oh yes. The other thing is that reflection, a little intense, isn't it? It gets too big of a reflection maybe to, because especially since we know it's in shadow. I think what I'm going to do, and I love cobalt teal for reflections too. So I'm going to take some cobalt teal and we're going to just kind of fill in that larger reflection shape on that side. That might be all we need to do. All right, I'm gonna sit on that. That looks really great. And let's think about. I'm like, oh, I could scrape a little bit at this opportunity here. There we go. A little bit of scraping. You don't know if you can really see that or not, but it looks, that really helped too. Okay, before we move on, I'm gonna put a tiny bit more ultramarine blue up here, I think, just to soften that, bring that color into the eyebrow a tiny bit. Okay. Boy, we really have established the shadow side. I think we were successful. Gosh, I love it though. All right, we're really close to victory here, everybody. You have been so amazing hanging on with me. I'm going to do the same thing with the light side eye. Pop in some of that beautiful cobalt teal. And then, but I think I want to soften that so it's not quite as dark as it was on the dark side. There we go. I do really like the way that that looks. That's so pretty. Yeah. I'm trying to think about what color, if any, I want right here. And I think I'm just going to soften this yellow. I softened the black. That was not my intention. Soften that beautiful gold. I should call it gold, not yellow, because I have yellow in my palette. I have not used that yellow. Just soften that beautiful gold. I'm going to grab a little bit more of the gold and emphasize. I love a good color around the eye. Because if you have big pops of color, your eyes are going to go there, and we kind of want people to notice the expression of the dog. And that's where the eyes are. I'm going to pop some gold up here too. Soften that in a little bit. Just kind of muddle it around. And how do we feel about, I'm going to grab a little bit of purple and darken up this white of the eye that we have. And then pop in some water too. A little bit more water. Let that kind of mingle with that. I'm going to grab a little kind of brown too. I don't want the eyes to look necessarily like bloodshot. So making this color a little bit more neutral could be a good idea. There we go. And then sometimes if you're lucky, a little pop of quinacridone gold in that lifted area of the iris can make it really glow. Oh, on the light side eye especially, I think that looks really, really nice. Now, where are we at with the shape? Pretty dark. It's still pretty dark, decent shadow happening on this part of the eye. And I know, and we do end up spending, a decent amount of time on the eyes between, starting with them and then coming back and doing detail. But it really is the most important part of the portrait. I really like that. That looks really nice. A little bit more pink. Bring that pink into the purple. Oh, pretty. All right, let me zoom out. I love the detail that we put there, that we spent some time on, kind of considering the whole portrait and what we can do to maximize the detail. So at this point, we can add splatter and think about whiskers. We don't have any masking to remove, which I think is really fun, because that's my least favorite part of painting, is removing and softening masking. I don't like that. That's not very fun. I put a little bit of blue here. I don't know. I feel like we have so much purple on here. I'm not going to add any purple splatter. I don't really want purple on here. So a little bit of blue, some light blue splatters. That's really pretty. A little bit. I haven't even really glazed. But sometimes I add so much color during the step 2. And when you have a very clear light side and dark side, that's kind of the point of glazing, is to make sure you have those things in place. So when you have that, you don't necessarily need to glaze too much, but that is something that would be part of this point in the portrait, is thinking about glazing. I'm also thinking about the shape. Do we have the shape of his head, all of his features, where they need to be? So lifting out a little bit, making sure I have some of this shape in place. I might lift out a little bit. It's hard because we have such a huge shadow on this portrait. But sometimes just a subtle lifting, it's kind of crazy. I really love that, to get his jaw kind of. That was a good call too. Gotta celebrate the wins. Okay, so you can glaze here too. We have some splatter there. I think some splatter of gold would be kind of really fun. So I'm gonna grab kind of a watery mix on a loaded brush. And we'll just see what we get over here. That looks really nice. I have one right here too. And maybe one right here by accident. And if you do lift off from a splatter, it's really fun to just pop in some water and then it'll push that pigment towards the edges of your splatter shape. And that can look really, really nice. Okay, so then it's just whiskers. So you have glazed, you thought about your details and softening and lifting, adding water, making sure your features look like where they should. I didn't glaze, but I often find that a few, I have to clean this brush to show you this, kind of brushstroke glazes that help with the shape of the dog at the same time can look really cool. And I'm seeing a place up on the head that maybe that would look nice on. So I'm going to grab some gold, I think. I got to make sure this is nice and clean. And let's just see. We already glazed a little bit here, but I'm going to put a nice little glaze up there. And a little bit right here. And then maybe we'll soften it. I don't want it to be too distracting. It looks really weird on my monitor. Looks like really intense. But I'm going to soften that in. I'm going to soften it a little bit more. And maybe I'll come in with, just kind of pick that up a little bit. Make it more of like a halo, like a really subtle ghost. Sometimes the glazing doesn't necessarily appear on the page like it appeared in your head. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I haven't decided if I want gold in the ear or not. We have a lot of gold, so I don't know if I want gold over there. Oh my gosh, it's good. It's a good sign. Okay, so splatter, and then it's just whiskers. And I love, 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 love ink pen for this part. So you just need like your ink pen. I do have that linked in the video description. We have a good amount scraped on the dark side. And you could go over that if you needed to. They're pretty though. I kind of like how messy they are. I don't know. I'm not sold because I know black whiskers here would be really intense. I think they would draw your eye in a kind of an intense way. I'll play it safe and I'll just kind of start with a couple whiskers. A little bit of whisker kind of hairy shape there. I'd like to do a couple, but I'm going to just really try to use the side of my pen so that it skips and kind of gives it a really thin line versus the front of my pen getting the top of my pen getting like a thicker line. We'll start kind of small and cluster them too. I really do like that. Probably pretty subtle that you can't see it, but a little bit of that. I'll lift up my painting so you can kind of see how that turned out. That's magic. That's all I want to do for that. All right. That was so fun. It's kind of wild because I have kind of not so much a vision, but at least like this color palette vibe that I kind of think I'm gonna go in with. And I mostly always get a little bit surprised by what happens. Let me show you, if I can, those whiskers. So those pen whiskers, really subtle right here, but that's what I wanted. A really thick black whisker on the light side would just command a lot of attention, and it might look a little jarring. So there we go, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm going to check the chat. I haven't checked the chat in a little while, but I will post the final picture. And okay, we have a couple questions here. Just what paper am I using? So this is rough paper. So you see a lot of kind of intense granulation, especially here. That there is lunar black in there, so that's definitely playing a part. But I would say the paper is causing a lot of that texture right there. So this is rough paper. It's intense for granulation, and it's a full size sheet, 22 by 30, cut down to 22 by 28 inches, and it's Fabriano paper. And grainer brushes. Oh yeah, so she's saying like it's a little hard for her to figure out grainer brushes with watercolor, and I would say absolutely they can be used with watercolor, any medium probably. I can't speak for oil and acrylic. The key, there's a couple things with grainer brushes that you have to think about. One is water content, right? So if you load your grainer brush with a lot of water, even if it has pigment in it, and then you try to get, I actually have to get pigment in this so you can see. So here's a loaded brush, and then you try to get thin lines. Did I load it enough? You're going to get thick lines, right? They're just not going to separate. And if you swipe your brush and get more of it like half full, you should be able to get thinner, sparse lines. And then the other thing with grainer brushes too is pressure. So if I go in and I just have an even amount of pressure, I'm going to get kind of like even lines. But if I come in, I need a sip of water. But if I come in and I think about pressure and kind of like applying more pressure at the beginning and less at the end, like a flick motion, then I get more of an organic looking grainer brush texture. So it's water content and then pressure. So play around with those two things and definitely practice using your grainer brush with your watercolor, and that will help a lot. Those are my top tips for grainer brush. So that takes care of it. You are so welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll post a picture of it when I'm settled on making sure that it's ready. But right now, I don't see anything that I would change. So, oh my gosh, this is so pretty on the tongue. The tongue really pops because that's the only place we put opera pink. It's so beautiful. Okay, I should go. This was really fun. Thank you so much for bearing with all my rescheduling. And you guys are the best. This was really, 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 really fun. All right, happy painting. Thank you, everybody.